Greetings, guys. So, if you are looking for the most in depth IFA teachings, transformative divination experiences, and authentic IFA products and services, you are definitely in the right place. If you are watching it live, be sure to post any questions or comments that you have in the chat box as we go along on whatever platform that you're on. And if you are watching the live replay, please be sure to leave any comments that you have in the comment section, and we'll get back to those later on whenever you post and we get the information. So we are talking about Babalawos and Ìyánífas, but the gist of the conversation is basically about an Ifa practitioner, someone who governs that particular aspect of the tradition who is linked to Orunmila. And I'm going to get into the definition as I go along. But do be mindful, even though my emphasis, my focus, I'll be saying Babalawo throughout the session, it also refers to an Ìyánífá. So that's the female practitioner. Welcome to all who are joining. Thank you guys for showing up and supporting. And we are just going to go ahead and dig into this very important topic because, of course, I get so many questions along this line quite often. So to start off with, a Babalawo is considered to be a father of mysteries. Likewise, an Ìyánífá would be considered a mother of mysteries. This is a priest or a priestess in the Ifa tradition who is responsible for Ifa divination. Ifa being connected to Orunmila specifically, not an Orisha. We are making a distinction here, though many of the things that I say, all of the things rather that I say, maybe with the exceptions to anything that's specific to what an Ifa priest or priestess would do, is definitely going to be applicable to pretty much any type of priest or priestess in this system, Nola Risha, or what have you. Our Odessa, you're here. Thank you. He is greeting to everyone, welcoming everybody. So, going back to what I was saying, definitely keep that in mind. Okay, this individual is responsible for Ifa divination, for doing rituals. Even if they don't do the rituals themselves, they will oversee that process. If you get a reading through them, they are going to put together different spiritual remedies, the Akoshe that we talked about before. Check that episode out for those of you all who are not familiar with spiritual medicine and guidance on pretty much every aspect of life. There's no limit to the information that this person can pull in relation to your life and answering different questions. That being said, if a divination, as we've discussed before, is not an intuitive process, it's based off of the Ifa system, which this individual gets a whole lot of training in. It's very important to know that a Babalawo in the Ìyánífá, Awo for short, I'm going to just say Awo because in Nigeria, oftentimes they're collectively referred to, Babalawos and Ìyánífás are collectively referred to as Awos to signify that these people are the mothers and fathers of the mysteries. Either way, this individual must go through Itefa. That's full on Ifa initiation in order to even be qualified to start training for this function of priesthood. So this is a necessity because this grants this person the authority to practice. That being said, right, Ifa initiation does not make one a Babalawo or an Ìyánífá from the door. They have to go through other steps as well. So they must train under an elder in order to get the deeper level knowledge that they need in order to establish their own temple and also to work with clients on a one-on-one basis. So there are a lot of steps involved in this. Be careful with working with somebody who is fresh out of initiation and they have not gone through the proper training to actually be a Babalawo or an Ìyánífá. It's not just anybody who is initiated can serve in this function. There are other things that they must go through. in the Yoruba community, or even so outside of Yoruba community, where anybody is practicing in this priestly function, they should be well respected in that particular community. It should be respected all over, but I say in that community because those are the people that are going to know their work and have a good idea of the type of individual that they are. The people in their community should be able to give you some insight about, are they ethical? How do they live? How do they interact with people within and out of the community? So this is a basic overview of what a Babalawo Ìyánífá is and what they do. Okay. Now we're going to talk about some concepts related to verification and the legitimacy of the Ifa priesthood overall. All right, so a legitimate owl should have verifiable Ifa lineage, somebody who initiated them. In some cases, they will have, especially when we're talking about the tradition is practiced in Yoruba land, they will maybe have some ancestral lineage there. Now, that probably won't be the case for somebody that's practicing outside of that, especially in like America. So if you're dealing with somebody that was trained here, usually they won't have that long family or generational lineage, but in a lot of other places, they will have that. Okay. Proof, right, that they've gone through Itefa. Community recognition, as I said before, deep knowledge of Ifa. That's so very important that this individual has knowledge and training in the system and they can answer your questions fairly easily. Of course, there are always going to be times that people may have to get extra information or what have you because nobody knows everything, but a qualified, sound Ifa priest or priestess who's been practicing for a while should definitely have the basics down. You should be able to ask those people, those individuals questions, and they should be able to provide you with a sound, legit answer based on the system itself. All right. So whenever you are working or deciding to work with an Ifa priest or priestess, you want to ask about, who taught them, the elder that they trained under, their lineage, as far as the person that trained them. So if it's an Ifa priest, if you're referring to lineage in the sense of the Orisha, that will be a Rumula. So there's no need to ask that question if they're a Babalawo, like they are under Ifa, right? Ensure that their teachings are aligning with the Odu. And the Odu, the premise of the Odu is Iwapeli, which is walking in alignment with good, sound, gentle character. It's great if you go and you get additional information about the Odu and you study it on your own. But anything that is outside of that parameter, anything that's outside of walking in balance, in harmony, if they're telling you anything outside of that, that individual is scamming you. They're not real according to traditional standards. And when I say real, I'm not necessarily saying that they are not an Ifa. They haven't gone through rather like the Itefa and all of this kind of stuff and trained, etc. Because they could have vast knowledge of the system. However, they may not be living or acting according to the principles of the system. And that in and of itself, no matter how much training that they've had, makes them fake because that's not what Ifa is about. Okay. At present, there is no single global body that certifies Babalawos or Ìyánífás or anything like that. Okay. But if you want to check to see if this person is legit, you may want to check with another Ifa priest or priestess or even another type of diviner altogether. All right. That part can get a little bit tricky because if you're considering working with one person and then you go to another person to have them check, it could be some conflict of interest there. So I'm not going to say that's the most reliable way, but you definitely want to get in your checks and balances when it comes to working with a Babalawo when you're choosing somebody to be your priest or priestess. Okay. I'm going to go through a few things related to their training initiation process, and then I'm going to really dig into the red flags and warning signs of fake owls. Okay. So a real owl is going to study the tradition for years, then get Ifa and go through Ifa initiation. So they're going to get a Tefa, what have you. And even after that, they still go through years and years of study and training, as I said before. They don't just jump out of Itefa and start doing readings for people and ritual work and other things that's connected to their role as a priest or a priestess if they are serious about what they are doing. You don't want that. You don't want somebody fresh out of initiation trying to do work for you, because they can cause you a whole lot of problems. Okay. It's not necessary that they're from Nigeria or have direct Yoruba heritage in order for them to be considered real. There are many people, anybody really can go and train in this functionality as an Ifa priest or priestess. So it's not relegated to just people of Yoruba heritage. But even so, everything needs to be legit. So they still have to do the same process, even more so probably a lot of times, especially when we're talking about people from the diaspora who are coming into the tradition with no foundation or knowledge. A lot of times the Yoruba priests and priestesses will come from a lineage. So they grew up seeing the tradition being practiced, and their training really started early on. Like a lot of times from when they pretty much came out of the womb, they were seeing things, especially if they come from a lineage of other priests and priestesses and things like that. Now we're going to go ahead and really dig into the red flags and the warning signs that you should look out for. Welcome to everybody, wherever you're coming in from as well. Thank you guys for showing up and supporting. So we are going to get back to this conversation. This is a really important juncture here so that you can pay attention whenever you're trying to search out somebody to work with, as far as an owl or something like that. And if a priest, or even like I said before, even so an Olarisha, this would apply. Many of these things will apply. So some common red flags, or is anybody coming to you using some type of scare tactic to get you to either do a reading or to do some type of ritual work? If somebody is demanding large sums of money from you up front, they haven't done anything for you, but they're telling you you got to give them a lot of money for whatever work they're telling you that you need. They should never demand it. I'm not speaking to the price of it when I say large sums of money, but if they're coming from the door saying, you need this work, etc., this is how much it's going to cost, and they keep badgering you about getting that work done, then you definitely want to, fall back and see if that's the right person that you should be working with. Guaranteeing results. A real Babalawo is not going to guarantee results. Okay, they do work, but and they're sure of their work for definitely, but there are some mitigating circumstances that can prevent your work from being successful that has nothing to do with them. So they can't guarantee your work because they don't know how you are going to react or interact throughout the process. I've talked about this before when it comes to doing ritual work and things like that. There are things that you need to comply with as well. So nobody can guarantee you an outcome, okay? Or if they refuse to answer basic or general questions. I get this quite a bit from people coming into my, DMs and on IG. They ask me a lot of, to me, really basic questions that if you're not working with somebody, it makes sense, right? But if you're working with somebody, certain questions you should not be coming to a different person to have answer. And oftentimes I'll ask the people, like, why didn't you talk to your owl, your Ìyánífá about these things? And they're saying to me, well, they won't answer this question for me. If you are getting services somewhere, excuse me, guys, if you're having services performed by someone, that individual should definitely be providing you with answers to your questions. Now, no, nobody is going to be able to sit with you all day long and answer question after question after question, because they do have work to do. And there will be certain circumstances where they may charge you, or they may deflect and say, you know what, it's better for you to go and look this up and get this information elsewhere. It's perfectly fine for you to study and get information elsewhere. You don't have to get it only from that person, but basic things, and definitely questions about any work that they perform for you, they should be able to answer that for you. If they're hesitating, there's a problem with that. Okay. I got to come in here. This is very helpful because I feel like you shouldn't have to demand anything. It should be on your time. Definitely. 100%. That's the way I feel. Right. And I'm going to even get into that deeper. So thank you for that comment for sure. A true owl is going to follow ethics according to the traditional system. Okay. That discourages causing harm to anybody that in a purposeful way. I'm going to say it that way, because there are some things, like some protective things, that an owl will do for himself or herself, right, to ensure that they're okay. And so if you violate certain things that, is related to the work that they've done on themselves, yeah, you can cause some harm, but that's not them causing you harm. That's because you're in the wrong. And understand, like, when you're working with people at this high level, they have high level of knowledge of the mysteries of Ifa, and of course they're going to take care of themselves. They should take care of themselves, because there are forces all over the place that are trying to get at us, right? But in general, they shouldn't be offering to curse somebody for you. And you shouldn't be asking them to, but if you do ask them to do any type of foul, evil, or malevolent work, they should not go along with it. So it could be the case where you're testing them out to say, let me see if this person will accept to do this type of work. And if they do, that's not the person that you want to go with, because understand, if they're willing to do that type of work against someone else, knowing that that's against Ifa principles or what have you, they'll do it against you if you make them mad enough, or you give them what they may deem to be cause to do so. So you want to run away from people that will do any type of evil work or malice or something like that. Okay. Protection work is different, and protection work, like I said before, if you're messing with, I won't even say the wrong person, if you're dealing with somebody that really knows what they're doing to protect themselves, and you do something foul against that individual, that's going to come back on you. And it doesn't even have to be that they're doing it directly to you. They could just be doing general protection work, and it's going to take effect. Okay. A real owl does not randomly message people with warnings or predictions without any prior consultation or knowledge of that individual. So if somebody is showing up in your DM on whatever platform and telling you that they received some kind of message from your ancestors or from Ifa or whatever, or Risha, or what have you, whatever spiritual force, and whether it's good or bad, if they show up in this way and you've not initiated a consultation with this person, that person is absolutely 1000% fake. And I would advise you to block them and never, ever even communicate with them at all. Block that person immediately, because that is definitely some scammy behavior. That is not the way Ifa priests and priestesses are supposed to act. All right. In general, you want to be the one that goes out and find the person to work with. I'm not saying it's wrong for somebody to come in your inbox and introduce themselves as a Babalawo, an Ìyánífá, or something like that. However, be careful when those types of things do happen, and definitely watch what they're saying. It could be that, that's just the situation that was meant for you, and that's the way it happened. So I don't want to put like a cap on that and say, oh, nobody should ever show up in your DM. It's the way that they approach the situation. They should never show up in your DM with a reading for you, right? Because even if you have your full real name on your profile, they can't really do a reading without your mother's name or your father's name. Even if you have that, even if they have all the data, that is against IFA ethics for them to just go and initiate a reading for you, a consultation for you. They should never do this. Greetings to all. Thank you all for showing up. Really appreciate you on all platforms, wherever you're showing up from. I really appreciate you guys showing up to get this message, because it's so very, very important. I answer these questions so often for people because there are questions, and I understand it. Like, it's a journey trying to find somebody to work with when it comes to the Ifa tradition, really any religion. So I'm not just putting it on Ifa, but this is where we find ourselves today. So if somebody is always online as well, like all they're doing is just showing up soliciting clients, if you constantly see this person online posting, either they're not a real owl, like truly trained in that function of priesthood, or they're not serious, right? Because for one, a real owl usually won't even have a whole lot of time to be on social media. They may have a few social media pages where they're showing up, posting information, and so that people can find them, right? But if they're really doing the work, they are not going to be online incessantly. That just doesn't make any sense. And even if they don't have work to do at that moment, they should be somewhere training and learning more about the tradition. So usually they'll be sitting under an elder or working with somebody else who is doing the work. You want somebody in that capacity who is constantly doing work, because the more work that they do, the more they're learning about the tradition and the more they can help you. It's like any other, professional role or what have you. The more time that a person spends practicing and learning about what they do, the better they become at their function. All right. I'm not saying they won't be online at all, but if they are constantly online, like you see this person online night and day, they're constantly in your DMs, they got too much time on their hands, and they probably aren't an Ifa priest or priestess. And again, even if they are, they're not somebody that you probably would want to work with, because they're not really engaged in the training aspects and learning more about the tradition as they should be. Okay. If somebody is rushing you or pressuring you into getting a reading or to do any type of ritual work, right? To get initiated and all of those types of things, that definitely indicates some form of manipulation, because if a priest and priestess are not supposed to do these types of things, okay? If you come to them and you get a reading through them, they give you whatever details, and it could be some negative stuff that comes out of your reading. I'm not saying that it won't be, because death does come up for some people. That is, part of the situation. Some people are facing impending death. However, those individuals that are dealing with that situation must be just told, this is your scenario. Nobody should keep saying, oh, if you don't do this ritual work, then you're going to die, your family's going to die, so forth and so on. They tell you what came out in the reading. You have a situation where you may be dealing with impending death, and so you need to do X, Y, Z rituals in order to help you overcome this or to prevent untimely death, etc. That's perfectly fine. Leave it there, right? If you don't want to do the ritual work, it's completely up to you. But nobody should be trying to force you. definitely when it comes to initiation, especially if you just get a reading from somebody, guys, don't go and initiate it with anybody when you just start to work with them. You need to get to know them. All right, take your time to figure out if this is the individual that you really want to work with long term. Okay. Um, Definitely, while certain services are going to require you to pay fees for, you're going to pay money to get a reading. You're going to pay money to do ritual work and things like that. That's just common sense. That's exchange for goods or services, right? But that person should be able to answer basic questions for you before you do a reading or a ritual work, or giving you some type of icon or pot, or initiating you, or things like that. If you're trying to ask them questions about the process so that you can understand it better, and they're telling you like they can't answer those questions until you do these things, yeah, that's an indicator that this person is not legit, and you don't want to continue down that path with them, because it's your right to have to make an informed decision about your own spiritual needs. It's definitely within your rights to do that. All right. Well, again, it's going to require money. You're going to pay money to get readings, to do ritual work. There's nothing in the spirit realm that's free. There's nothing in this physical realm that's truly free, because you're going to pay for it some way or another, right? However, nobody should be forcing you or consistently asking you to give donations, tips, and that type of money outside of what type of work they're doing for you. Is it bad or wrong to give donations, tips? Not at all. We accept them ourselves, and we are greatly appreciative of anybody, of the many people who have given to us and continue to do so in that capacity. However, this is not something that somebody should pressure you to do. They really shouldn't even be asking you for it for the most part. And there's some situations, maybe they're doing something with their temple or what have you, and they're asking for donations from their elay members to help out. Those situations are different, right? Or they may have like a general donation collection form or what have you on their website or their page. That's okay as well. But to pressure somebody and to constantly tell somebody, donate or give me extra money for this, or if they're coming at you and saying, oh, my mom is sick, I need to, get some medicine for her and so forth. So they no, that is completely unprofessional. If they have a sick mom, they need to take care of it. They were able to deal with her beforehand, before they ever met you, and they should be able to continue to deal with her needs thereafter. Daniela, you're saying grateful for this insight as not to be misled. I definitely. Thank you for that. And I'm hoping that I am giving you guys some really sound information here that you can take and use as you travel along this journey. But to close off this particular section, you can give donation and tips, but this is again something that should be from your own heart. If you feel inclined to do this, please definitely feel free. Like, they will appreciate it. It's always great to be appreciated for the work that you do, but nobody should be constantly badgering you for extra money. They shouldn't even badger you for money for the work that they're doing for you. They're going to tell you this is how much it costs. And if you want to proceed with their work, you should go ahead and do it. But definitely outside of anything that is fee based on their work, nobody should be, soliciting you for those types of things. I got coming here. People from Nigeria try to pressure me to talk about Ifa and telling me leukemia is not the proper form that I need to initiate there. So a part of that is true. So leukemia, Santeria, that is not Isheshe. I'm not going to say it's not proper, but it's not Isheshe. That being said, they should not be pressuring you. You do what you want to do. If you're good in dealing with leukemia, if it's working for you, nobody should be telling you that you have to come and initiate in Nigeria if that's not what you want to do. Okay. You said, why would I travel to Nigeria? I have an honest place to go here to Florida. Absolutely. Right. You're here in Florida, rather. Absolutely. If you are satisfied with what you have and it's working for you, stay with that. Right. There's no need to go to Nigeria. There's no need to deal with somebody in Nigeria if you're working with a system that works for you. Okay, so your sacrifices, your ritual work after you get a reading is going to be determined by divination. I've said this before, and I probably will continue to say it time and again because I do get these questions quite often. If you have a fixed fee, somebody tells you doing Evo sacrifices is going to cost whatever amount. I don't care if it's $2, right? And if they're charging $2, you best know that it's not proper. But I don't care what they are charging you. If they are giving you a price beforehand, they are not operating according to the tradition. There are some things that are going to come along in the process that are general for everybody, sure. However, nobody can predict and tell you exactly what sacrifices and offerings are going to come out for you because they haven't generated an Odu yet to tell them what you need to do. So how are they charging you beforehand? And there are significant price differences in sacrificing different types of animals, right? So a chicken is much cheaper than a goat or a dog or something like that. So keep those things in mind. And you're very welcome. You said thank you for your insight. You're very, very welcome. A true owl maintains professional boundaries. Ladies, let me say this to you. If somebody is trying to initiate a sexual relationship with you, or they're doing a reading for you and telling you that you must marry them specifically, right? No, this is not according to standard practices. I'm not saying that you cannot get involved in a relationship or even so marry an owl. That's perfectly fine if it's something that you want to do. However, it is against Ifa ethical codes for them to demand or pursue this type of connection with somebody in a way that is unwanted, okay, or unsolicited. Yeah, it would be normal if you got together with somebody, you spend a lot of time with them. Sometimes it happens and it's absolutely natural, but nobody should ever demand this. If they're demanding it, they are in the wrong. You need to walk away. There is no sacrifice, there's no elbow in the Odu that requires you to have sexual relationships with somebody. All right. So if somebody tells you that, they are completely in the wrong and you need to run away from that person because they are really trying to get you. And if you get involved with them sexually, you're going to have a whole lot more problems than you ever bargained for. Somebody is asking for explicit images of you. So they're telling you they need to see your breast or, your lower parts or whatever, male or female. And also that goes, let me go back. So I don't want to leave you guys out, males. It's just that it happens more so with the Ifa priests doing this to women than, of course, the Ìyánífas doing it to males. But I'm pretty sure it has happened at some place in time. So it goes both ways. But going back to our discussion about the explicit images. No, first of all, it doesn't require an image of you to do an Ifa reading. Understand that. And I discussed that before in the last live. Somebody may ask you for a photo when doing ritual work so that they can connect it to your ritual work and you know that is your work, right? And so we do ask for that, but it's not mandatory. Even so, the image is of your face. That's it. They should not be asking for images of your naked body parts. There's no ritual or ceremony that requires such. that is completely against Ifa. That is not true. Do not do that if you want to be safe and protected. I got a comment. What's the difference between initiated and Ocha? I don't know what Ocha is. I think that's something in the Lukumi or Santeria tradition, and I am not familiar with those traditions. I only work with Isheshe. And if it's something in Isheshe, I'm not familiar with it. I will just, if you're there, can you do you know what Ocha is? Is OCHA? Because he's asking what's the difference between being initiated and Ocha. So if you have the answer, please let us know, and we'll try to get that out to you if he knows anything about it. So yes, going back to what I was saying. So the explicit imagery, nobody needs that for reading. Nobody needs that for ritual work. It makes no sense. I don't even know why they would. I mean, I'm pretty sure they would ask for a reason, because they want to do something really foul with it. I don't even know what they would do with it, even like if they're trying to do some type of ritual or something against you. Or they shouldn't put you in a vulnerable position at all. Okay. Okay, so she is saying Ocha is Orisha initiation in Lukumi. I knew it had to be something, because even the word itself sounds like it comes from that region. And thank you for that clarification, Monica. So she's saying it's Orisha initiation. So there are two different things that can go on here too, right? Ifa is an Orisha, right? But Ifa initiation is different than Orisha initiation. Ifa is Oromula, and that's one path that is different from going to initiate or work with a specific Orisha like Obatala or Ogun, Shango, or any of those other spiritual forces. And so the process of initiation is going to look different. Okay. And let's see. If your life suddenly worsens after you start working with an owl, they may be using spell work against you to manipulate you. So that is why it is so very, very important to know who you're working with, and not just go down this path of working with anybody and giving people your name and your information and your details and things like that. Because when you do, they can use that against you. Okay. If they engage in malevolent spell work, so forth and so on. Okay. So you want to be careful. That's why you want to be careful before you even choose somebody. You going down that path to work with somebody in particular. So you're saying Emoya, Ocha. I don't know if you're saying Ocha specifically for Emoya. So I don't know much about Emoya, how it works as far as going through that initiation process. So I don't work with Emoya specifically. Let's see. Greetings to everybody who is coming in. I'm getting a few people saying hello and welcome all. Really appreciate you showing up again. So now let's get into some ethical and professional conduct that an owl should be adhering to. Okay. So you're going to be charged fees, even if you're working with somebody who is real, somebody who is legit. However, fees should be reasonable based on traditional practices. They shouldn't be really excessive. And that is relative, right? Because I know somebody's like, well, how much should I be charged? It's definitely relative to the person that you're working with. Their location is going to determine a whole lot, because animals are going to cost more in certain regions than in other regions, and also depends on the type of animals that they're using. Some people just go and get regular livestock, which is much cheaper than animals that are raised for the specific or explicit purpose of doing spiritual sacrifices and offerings. Those types of animals are raised differently. They're going to cost differently. That's the type of animal that you will want to be used. However, it's going to be more expensive, right? Also, it depends on their service fees because everybody's going to add their own service fees. So one person may charge much less than another person. Okay. No, that's not what he's saying. No. You're saying Oshi or Oshi. No, he was spelling. The spelling is different, Oshi, but she's clarified it for us. It's spelled Ocha, right? But she's clarified it for it. It's not Shango's icon. He's talking about a type of initiation, basically the word for initiation in the Lukumi tradition. So thank you. Okay, I don't know what that means. But greetings to all, guys. So I'm gonna get back to it, but if you have further questions on that, you definitely DM me. But he's talking about something different. So what was I about to say? So yeah, they shouldn't be charging excessive fees though. And so the way you can look at that maybe is to check out the fees of a few people to see what they're charging for comparable services. And I'm not going to say cheaper is better because it's just like I said before. Yeah, it could be cheaper, but there's also the notion of you get what you pay for. So it really just depends on what it is and how it's coming to you and so forth and so on. I don't like to speak a lot to other people's fees just because I don't know what goes into their process, right? You're saying I was told from an owl in my area it will be about 3,000 to be initiated into IFA, and if I wanted to move further from there. So that is within the price range. It can vary, right? 3,000 to 12,000, sometimes a little bit more. It really depends on what goes into it, right? So if you're in your local area, it will probably definitely be cheaper for you because there are certain things that they don't have to worry about or they don't deal with. So maybe like providing you with transportation or accommodation and things like that. But that's actually something that I'm going to dig into more next week. I do plan to talk about that because I get asked a lot about, initiation costs and, what goes into the process. But the fees vary, right? They can vary considerably. And it really just depends on what is included in the work, what's included in what you're doing in the initiation process, if they're including things like transportation and accommodations, meals, etc., if they're providing extra work or extra services, even so after the initiation process, because some people will keep you and teach you, give you deeper level knowledge, so forth and so on. So it can vary. That's all I'm going to say. It can vary. Tomorrow, you're saying I was informed I needed to cleanse by a owl. Should I get the cleanse from that person before seeking out another owl because of his lack of availability? So if somebody told you need to do a cleanse, I would advise you to work with that person who told you that, right? Because you could go to somebody else and they may be like, that's not what's showing up if you do a reading or what have you through them. So if one person tells you something, you have to go with them for whatever guidance that they are giving you specifically. If you choose to go with somebody else, you want to go to somebody else and get a reading or some kind of checking, whatever it is, through that other individual. Okay. That's always my advice. Like, it's not good to mix up things from two different people because most readers anyway will want to go off of their own reading. They'll pull the Odu by themselves or they'll do a checking by themselves. You're saying Joseph Baba Ifa said he is an option for me. He is a good man. Okay, yes, I've heard of him before. He provides a lot of great information. So, again, you want to go, guys, and I'm going to really hit home on this point later on with, where your intuition is guiding you. All right, and I'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so Rick, you're saying, do your ancestral lineage has a part in determining if I have to get initiated? And if I'm not mistaken, did you say that anyone can become an owl? So I don't know if I said it or not, but yes, anybody can become an owl if they go through training. And Babalawo being the male, Ìyánífá being the female. So yes, anybody can go through the priesthood training in general. I don't know of any situations where somebody would be restricted. Maybe there's some kind of taboos or special cases there, but in general, yeah. As far as your ancestral lineage being a part, at the end of the day, anybody can get initiated. It may be that definitely if you have like an ancestral heritage connected to Ifa, that your ancestors will direct you to the path, and they'll say, it's best for you to go through this path. Um, is it like your ancestors are gonna come and like be the guiding force that kind of says you have to do initiation? No, not in that way. But anybody can make the decision to get initiated. Anybody can make the decision to train to become an owl as well. So I hope I answered your question there, Reed. If I didn't, just let me know, please. So going back, so we talked about the money. Now, a real owl can absolutely refuse to perform certain services for you, readings, rituals, etc., if the request goes against the ethical codes that are outlined in Ifa. Going back to what I was saying before, you definitely don't want to you don't want to work with somebody engaging in malevolent work or left-handed work, whatever you want to call it, however you say it in your tradition or your local language or what have you. It's not a great idea to work with somebody who is willing to use that type of work, because if they're willing to use it for you, they are willing to use it against you. So just keep those dynamics in mind. And a real or somebody who is really strongly adhering to the code of moral ethics when it comes to Ifa, they won't do that type of work for you. They'll turn you away 9 times out of 10. Okay. This is another important point, right? You can't judge a book by its cover. Right? So you can't look at somebody and say that they are a real owl or not just based on the way that they are dressed. I purposely use the image for the thumbnail for this live stream, to iterate that particular point, because it does show, like this elderly figure who looks like he is this perfect owl, and then it has this other guy in kind of gaudy dress or what have you. And so you would assume, oh, that's the fake owl. We can't make decisions based on that, right? It is very common, yes, for owls to wear the traditional dress, their ceremonial attire or what have you, whenever they are in those the major rituals and events and things of that nature. However, it is also very common for an owl to just dress regularly. All of them, especially nowadays, especially the younger generation, does not always put on, the traditional garb for owls. And it doesn't make them any less of a professional or any less of somebody who is authentic or real than somebody who is, because there are people who you can't catch them outside of the traditional dress, but they're some of the worst people that you ever want to meet. So you don't make your decision based on that. So Mara, you're saying thank you. You're very welcome. Very welcome. So keep that in mind as well. Don't look at somebody just because of the way that they're dressed and assume that they are real or they are not real, because you could be making a grave mistake by making a decision on something like that alone. Okay. Now, how do you deal with it when you encounter somebody who is fake, who does not have your best intention at heart? How do you, keep yourself safe spiritually, right? First and foremost, if you realize that somebody is fake, that they're not good for you, you definitely want to stop engaging with them as soon as possible. Seek guidance elsewhere. All right. Depending on how far down that path you've gone with them, you may have to deal with some uncrossing work. Okay. If they've done something against you, right? Because understand, or not even just against you, like a fake owl can definitely cause you some type of spiritual imbalance if they misuse rituals. They don't know what they're doing. They're playing around with it or what have you, or just don't know. And they think that they know. They can absolutely cause you a whole lot of harm if they're doing ritual work for you. Obviously, they can mislead you, misguide you, and they can exploit you on a high level. Usually, the exploitation is going to center around money for the most part. But again, like I was saying before, a lot of times when you get these male female dynamics, the exploitation then also becomes sexual, but the underlying basis of that is still usually money. So, ladies, I'm telling you, don't let somebody fool you into getting into these types of relationships with them, because they can use, they'll, if they're trying to have sex with you, understand it is 9 times out of 10 not about your body. It's about some paperwork, right? If you're, especially if you're foreign, right? You're living in the US or Canada or someplace like that, they're usually trying to get documentation to come outside of their country. And so what do? They use love and sex and so forth and so on in order to make that happen. All right. And you could be dealing with somebody who got a whole family in Nigeria. All right, or elsewhere. I don't want to just pick on Nigeria, so I apologize, because it could be elsewhere. It could be Nigeria. It could be in the islands, wherever. They could have maybe 2 or 3 families in those places, and so they start working on you to get married, to get the papers, the documentation, the green card for America, what have you, so that they can gain citizenship. Trust and believe. Trust and believe. There's somebody saying, why Nigeria? Forgive me, because that was wrong. That was really wrong to pick on Nigeria specifically. But it happens, guys. That's the reality. It happens. And like I said, it's not about sex. Like, don't think that, you just all of this and this person just wants you so desperately. Understand that they're trying to get some paperwork, and they are probably trying to get money out of you as well. So there's so many reasons behind that. Okay. So now I'm going to give you all some questions. Yeah, you're saying Nigerians be scamming too. It happens all over the world. That's why I say I don't want to pick on Nigeria. Nigeria gets picked on a lot when it comes to scam. Yes, scams do occur in Nigeria, but they happen all over the world. They happen right here in the US. People scam as well. So I don't want to, you know, perpetrate that negative imagery that people oftentimes try to put on Nigeria specifically. And even so, Black Nigerians, right? Because a lot of scams that come out of Nigeria are not actually Native or Black Nigerians. There's a whole lot of people, a lot of Asians in Nigeria that perpetrate schemes, and they use of the face of a Black Nigerian in order to do so. And so that is what comes out in the media, right? The Nigerian prince scheme. And a lot of times it's people of other nationalities sitting behind it. I'm not saying that Black Nigerians don't do their share of scamming, because they do. All right. I'm not trying to put a halo around them either, but I'm saying this happens all over the world. So don't let anybody fool you and, say, oh, it's just Nigeria and so forth and so on. I lived in Africa, in West Africa, and I've seen so many things happening in that region of the world, right here in America, right? So I'm not even dismissing America, because stuff happens here too. I lived in the Middle East, saw it there too. It's everywhere. at the end of the day. All right. African Prince, you're saying it's more Europeans, Indians doing this than Africans? Absolutely. It is absolutely, because you got to realize too, in order for them to get to these types of schemes, especially with the computers and so forth and so on, they have to have the capital. And a lot of the more indigenous Nigerians don't even have the capital to access these types of things. So all of these things they've been telling you all of these years is not really what you think it is. Even this conversation right here, understand that somebody could be perpetrating as a real owl. They could actually be using the image of a real owl, a Nigerian, black Nigerian owl, and they could be a whole nother nationality. You got people like from India and other parts of Chinese people from all over Asia that were born and raised in Nigeria, and they can speak the language. They can speak Yoruba and Igbo and house in other languages just as well as the Nigerian. And they can carry out the accent so much as well. So be careful about that. All right. So absolutely. So Tamara saying it's the same way in the church system too. Right. Exactly. People are people no matter the belief system. You gotta just be wise and protect yourself. That's how it goes. It happens everywhere, all over the place. I've seen it. Islam, all of that. Okay. You said I had to restrict a couple of young Babalawos from Nigeria. They tried to pressure me. What kind of services can we achieve online anyway? There are many things you can do online remotely for sure. So you can get readings and ritual work can be done remotely, but nobody should be trying to pressure you. It happens. There are owls. Look, even so, from the Caribbean islands that will come in your DM and do those types of things as well, right? If they get some kind of access to you, they see you or what have you. Definitely, you're going to see this type of scheme as far as an owl goes being perpetrated more so out of Nigeria. But again, do not mistake that for a black Nigerian doing it all the time, because it's not always the case. It could be a Hindu person where they doing what they do. All right. So let's get into some of the questions that you can ask a person to try to tease out this information. This is not an exact process to say, oh, if they answer this way or they answer that way, that they are legit. Because if somebody knows how to play the game well enough, they can tell you anything. Okay. But you can still put some protective measures, and sometimes like it's sort of like an alarm system or what have you, right? That can serve as a deterrent. So if you get to asking too many questions, the person might go away because they may get, a little bit fearful, like, oh, okay, this person's a little bit hip, so I'm not going to mess with them too much, right? You're asking what is the term you're using? Are you saying owl? So AWO is short for Babalawo, and owl is used as a collective term to reference both the Ifa priest and priestesses. So when I say owl, I like to say that because of the collective nature. It includes both the Babalawos and the Ìyánífá, but that's what I'm saying. Okay. So lineage and training, you want to ask them about their Ifa lineage, who trained them, whether they have elders, reputable community, a temple to vouch for them, etc. You're very, very welcome. You can, and I'm going to say this, right? So if you can, try to get in a phone call with them, right? When you start asking questions, because it's easy for somebody to type an answer to you, and they can always say, oh, I was offline or whatever, if it takes them too long to get back with you. So try to, get on that phone if you can, possibly WhatsApp, what have you, and start asking these types of questions, right? Again, somebody skilled at scamming, they're going to do what they do and they still fool you. But somebody who's brand new at it and they're not ready for this, you can kind of tease this out from the door with individuals like that, okay? You're saying, how old can a Baba be to start his journey? There's really no age limits on it. When it comes to Nigerian people who come out of the tradition, they are going to be fairly young. And that doesn't mean that they're not good at what they do or they don't know what they're doing. Typically, though, when it comes to people in the diaspora who weren't born and raised in the tradition, they are going to be a little bit older. But there's like no, I don't think it's any specific age restrictions there. I will just, can you answer that? If you are there, like, are there any age restrictions in as far as how old somebody can be in order to even become an owl? Um, You're saying some owls just want to make themselves look good. Like if they have a lot of work to do, makes them look good. But that's only some, especially young. It strokes their egos. I don't even know if it's about stroking their egos. I think they want the money, right? Um, and I'm not even going to say it's always the young ones that are perpetrating the scams because there are some older ones that do it as well. I've had some older people, I'm not gonna call them owls, that tried me, but like it, like you don't even know what you're doing. Like you're not even paying attention to the person that you're trying to scam. You're so, dead on trying to get what you want to get out of this person that you don't even know how to perpetrate the fraud properly. And so I catch them up a lot of times from that angle. Okay. That's why I don't want to put any type of parameters on that because you can't say just because somebody is young or old that they are a fraud or not, right? You're saying no reason to pressure people though. Absolutely. Somebody pressuring you, like you need to walk away from because if they start off the connection that way, it's always going to be that way. Okay. You said you're right. The older ones do it too. Yes, they do. I've actually had more issues with the older ones than the younger ones. That's just how it goes sometimes. Okay, so you can ask these questions. You can also ask them about initiation, inquire if they've undergone ETEFA because they must go through ETEFA to even qualify as an owl. If they've never gone through ETEFA, you're dealing with the wrong person. All right, as we talked about before. You can ask how long they've been practicing, what specific knowledge they have in divination rituals, Ifa teachings. These are just, some things to go by as far as like what you can ask them or what you maybe want to know. And even so beyond just trying to figure out if they're real or fake, these are some good things for you to know as well when you're trying to make a decision. Because even if they're legit, like this could make a difference to you, especially like how long this person has been practicing and you kind of assessing their knowledge base to see if they're the right fit for you. For me personally, I like a lot of information. I like to understand things really, really deeply. I like to know the meaning behind things. So anybody I work with, I don't care if you legit or not, I'll ask you a million questions. And so you need to be like equipped to get my questions answered, right? Whether you're answering it or if you got to go somewhere else and get the answer, I need my questions answered. That's how I am. And so that's something that you have to consider as well when it comes to working with someone. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. So this is saying 18 years old at least. So circling back to that question that we had earlier about how old an owl is should be, and he is saying at least 18 years old in order to be, proper Babalawo, right? I'm pretty sure it's got some kind of European influences because that's like the age of a majority in the European world. So yeah, there you go with that. So approach to readings and rituals. So how do they approach the process? If they're online, they may have a website where they spell all this out, for you. And I'm not saying go and ask questions if you can already find the information. Because people who have like proper websites and things like that set up, oftentimes you can go online and just figure that information out yourself, right? But if they don't have one, and this is usually the case with the Nigerian owls that are, working on out of Facebook or what have you, they don't have, full on page set up. Does not mean that they're not legit. Again, sometimes it's just a conversation with the person, right? And you can assess those things if you know what to ask and if you know what to listen out for. All right. You want to get information about their payment structure, like what are they charging, how much are things going to be, etc., etc. Okay, other spiritual work that they're doing. All right, when you're getting, especially those high level things like the icons, the pots, the crochet, you want to ask them what's coming with it. So I did an episode before about the pots and the icons. Check that out if you haven't seen it yet. And I talked about what is supposed to come with those items. Some people don't give you the actual pot. They only give you what goes inside of the pot, which is not right. It's not the correct procedure, right? But you need to have that conversation with them before you start getting those types of devices from them to ensure that you are getting a properly consecrated device that is going to benefit you. There's no need to pay all of that money doing that and they're not bringing you the right things that you need in order to integrate into the tradition properly. Okay. So now we are going to talk about protecting yourself. And this is the last section that I want to go over, guys. So if you do have any lingering, questions or comments or anything like that, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat box and I will try to get to them before we close up. All right. The one way you're going to be able to protect yourself, guys, is to have clear intentions, right? Know what you are seeking along this journey, all right? If you come into it with good intentions, with a pure heart, then you're likely going to find the right person. It may not be the first person you find. You may have to go through certain trials and tribulations before you get to the right person for you. That was part of my journey. I went through some situations that weren't so great, right? Particularly one situation. But now I realized that was so that I could show up in this space because that pissed me off. So it was like, I don't want other people that's trying to have this same journey to go through this. And so it gave me the motivation to show up and, talk about the tradition and give as much information as I possibly can to help others who are venturing down this path. And so that being said, there may be a similar situation for some of you all so that you can also help people and you'll know what to look out for in the future. Okay. But even so, you want to come to it with really, really clear intentions. Don't be desperate. All right. It doesn't call for that. Ifa is all about patience. It's all about, allowing things to manifest in divine timing. Don't be, anxious to get things done so quickly. Okay. Definitely don't approach it in greed because that's how a lot of these scams are perpetrated. Somebody, out there jump in your DM and says, I can do this ritual work for you and bring you a whole lot of money. Okay. And you fall for it. That's your own greed. Okay. So that's something that you need to deal with because somebody just jumping in there and telling you something like that. You don't have any foreknowledge of this person and you're willing to go down that path. That's you being greedy as well. And never operate in a space of fear. Okay, because any type of fear-based operation is going to lead you down the wrong path. So I got coming here. Subscription-based pricing is a red flag too. Oh yes. So I haven't seen them. If they are charging you a subscription for what? Like really? If you're saying a subscription, maybe if it's to like get content or information, that's different because some people do have like Patreon accounts and they offer some really great information through that resource. And I definitely understand why they would charge for it because it is not easy to show up and give out really deep level information for free because that's that person's time. But if somebody is like engaging you in a subscription for like a reading or some ritual work, yeah, that's a huge red flag. So, is it imperative to sacrifice a pigeon? Imperative would basically mean like, is it vital? Is it necessary? So it's never necessary for you to have to sacrifice anything that you're not willing to sacrifice, or you don't have the money or the desire to sacrifice. That being said, a pigeon offering absolutely can come up, depending on the reading, the orisha, or what have you. It's a very common offering that comes up. Do you have to do it? No, you don't have to do any offering. It's completely up to you. Um, as far as elbow goes, as I always say though, like if you're going to get an E5 reading, you need to be prepared to give elbow to do a sacrifice, right? So there's really no need to do an E5 reading unless you're prepared for that reality. And a pigeon can come up in an E5 reading. It can come up for several orisha. It just depends on the situation. What is the Ifa festival celebration for? So it's a time of coming together, communities, people to coming together to truly celebrate the essence of Ifa. Just to kind of keep it short and sweet with this one, similar to like Christmas or something like that, right? So Christmas is the annual celebration where people come together and they worship and, you know, give homage and praise to Jesus, right? And so it's the same concept there, right? And Ifa is the Ifa festival specifically for Ifa, though other Orisha will be celebrated during that time as well, in some cases. So you were saying sound goes, yeah, you should do the elbow. You should do it, yeah, but the question was, is it imperative? And the answer to that is no, if you go by the strict definition of imperative, right? Because imperative ultimately means mandatory. But if you get a reading, you should do the sacrifices. Like, don't get a reading unless you prepare for that reality. And maybe that's what you were reiterating. So, you know, apologies if I said something different, but you should do it. If you are getting a reading, you should be prepared to do the EBO. If that's something that you can do, if you can afford to do it. And I'm also say here, if you're feeling like it's something that you should move forward with. Because if somebody is scamming you and they give you a list of sacrifices and offerings, and they, you know, do it or they don't do it, they just get your money, then that's a whole nother scenario as well. And I'm going to get to that too, because that has a lot to do with being connected to your aura and going with your intuition. Be very cautious on social media, guys, right? Not everyone claiming to be an owl is legit. Like scammers, as I said before, they use fake profiles. It is so easy, especially in the days where they go online and grab somebody's picture and throw it up and say, I am, you know, owl such and such, right? And you never really know who you're dealing with. That's how it goes. You said, will receive guidance, will receive any negative karma for having the pigeon sacrifice. Like, does spirit see it as an eye for an eye? No, no sacrifice is considered to be negative karma, right? If you're doing a pigeon offering or any type of offering according to the traditional way, this is not seen as negative. Sacrifices are a form of spiritual currency or payment. All right. So you're exchanging a life force for something that you need. Okay. So let me say this, right? If you eat animals, that animal was killed, that animal was sacrificed for your physical nourishment. And the same dynamic is true when it comes to sacrificing animals for spiritual purposes. That animal is then being used for your spiritual nourishment. And it's also cooked and eating as well. So it's also used for a person's physical nourishment, whether it be you specifically or, you know, if it's done remotely, somebody else would cook it and, you know, deal with the animal according to the traditional way. Sometimes they're not cooked if they're used to remove curses and things like that. So yeah, be careful on social media, guys. As I said before, avoid unsolicited messages. So try not to engage with people too much who are DMing you with any type of ominous readings, like your ancestors told me to tell you this, or you got a curse on you, or Ifa told me to come to you and tell you that you got a lot of enemies. It's no, like nobody, as I said before, should be DMing you with any type of information based on a consultation that you never ever solicited. Doesn't make any sense. Somebody threatening you, urgent spiritual warnings and things like that. No, be mindful of what you share. This is important too, because a lot of times, people, when they're traveling down this journey, they get extra excited. And so they get online, they get in groups, and they're like, I'm looking for an hour, or I want to practice Ifa. And or they'll even be sharing a lot of personal information. Me and my boyfriend going through this, I'm fighting with my mom, I don't have a job, my health is this and that, right? So you are feeding them information that they can use to show up in your inbox. And this is why a lot of people get fooled, because they'll show up in the inbox based on something they see on your profile and say, you can get rid of this sickness, or you can get your marriage better, or whatever it may be. And you feel like that message is for you, because you don't realize that you put a lot of information out there, and you're like, well, this must be divinely guided, when that person was just looking on your Facebook profile and all of the personal information that you're putting out there and sharing, right? You said, thank you for claiming that it's logical sense. You're welcome. I understand your sentiment about like the sacrifices and stuff, but yeah, that I encourage you to watch the episode on Ebo sacrifices and understanding what they're about to get more details about that, because it's available on YouTube because you guys are on Instagram. But I encourage you guys to watch that, because they can shed a lot more light on why we go through those processes in EFI. Don't rush into initiation. I say this all the time. I will continue to say this as long as I have a platform to say it on. Don't rush into initiation. Take your time. Vet a person beforehand before you travel down that road with them. Okay, because you don't know them, and don't be so quick to, I gotta get initiated. Like, there are some rare cases where yes, initiation can be life or death for people, but for the most part, it isn't. Right? And tap within yourself to see if that's the path you need to take, and if that's the path you need to take with that specific person. Okay. Educate yourself about Ifa. The more you learn, the harder it is going to be for somebody to deceive you when traveling down this path. When you understand aspects of the Holy Odu for yourself, because that's basically what pretty much all Ifa knowledge comes from. When you understand what's written there and how to apply it to your life, you will understand when somebody is fooling you, right? You'll understand all of those different things. So get more in-depth knowledge and information overall about the tradition as much as you possibly can. Make logistical decisions, guys. So analyze the legitimacy of the information that you're receiving from somebody. If somebody shows up in your inbox and says that they can make you a millionaire, they can guarantee you wealth, like just think about the logistics of that. If that person could do that, they wouldn't be in your inbox. Why? Because they would have did it for themselves, and they would have no need to be in somebody DM telling them that they can guarantee them wealth or success in that manner. It doesn't make sense. Because if you can do all of that for me, you can do it for yourself. And if you were able to do it for yourself, you're going to be sitting somewhere looking real nice, enjoying yourself in a lap of luxury, not be in my DM telling me that you can make me rich. Okay. So, think about those types of things logistically when somebody is showing up to tell you crazy stuff like that. He said, I feel like you're the first page that explains it in a way that I understand. Thank you so much. I'm really happy that I am able to provide deeper level information for you guys. So I love my Baba. Shout out to Nigeria. Yes, thank you for that. Shout out to Niger, right? So I love Niger. I'm not didn't try to come down on Niger at all. I absolutely love the place. I love the people, but things happen. Things happen from all over. All right. Trust your intuition. Absolutely, guys. Always trust your intuition. Connect with it first as well, because some people do say like they do make decisions based off their intuition and it still leads them down the wrong path. This often happens when you are not properly aligned with your aura. So do some things. Start to fast. Start to pray. Ask your aura what it needs in order to be strengthened, so that you can properly align with it. Of course, in the traditional way, there are also rituals that you're going to do in order to appease your head. But there are, in day to day life, you still should be working with your aura. You should be appeasing your head every day, feeding it positive thoughts, feeding yourself with positive media, even so consuming good healthy things in your body, the food that you eat. All of that is going to help strengthen your aura, your intuition, and help you to make better decisions. Right? But listen to it. If something is just doesn't feel right, all right, don't go down that path. Don't ignore your Ori, your ancestors, your Igby, all of your spiritual team. Do not ignore them when they're trying to take you off of a path. If you keep trying to like go down a certain road with somebody and you keep getting like doors, slamming in your face, that's a strong indicator that that's not the path that you're meant to go down, because your spiritual team is trying to block you from making certain decisions. But a lot of times people keep traversing down that path because it could be desperation. They just want it so badly. They're really, really hungry for it. So it could be a legit situation in that manner. But it also could be situations, as I mentioned before, greed or fear, or you're just so anxious, like you just gotta get into the Ifa tradition or what have you. And it is usually not going to be that serious of a matter for you to, it will never be that serious of a matter for you to ignore what your spiritual team is trying to show you. Okay. So that's all I have, guys. If you want, like the most transformative IFA experiences, divination services, authentic products, and services related to the tradition, check us out on the Asanee 44 website. We have it all there available to you. Okay. And guys, definitely leave me any topic requests, any questions that you have in the comment section so that we can get to them on YouTube, right? So like Facebook, they're actually starting to take away the live screen to previous live screen. So it'll stay available on YouTube. That's the best way to connect with me. If you have general or basic questions, feel free to DM me on IG, and I will try to get back with you as soon as possible. I do not answer Facebook DM, so if you DM me there, you will not receive a response from me. I'm telling you that now. Okay. You're saying Ifa found me thanks to Olodumare. Ashe for sure. Odupe Ìyánífá Olodumare, bless you immensely. So I'm not in the Ìyánífá, but thank you for that. I am not in the Ìyánífá. I'm not an Ifa priestess. Okay. But I appreciate you all. Thank you. Ashe, please have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.